Hey guys, my name is Baxter. I'm an accredited practicing dietitian and online physique coach, and this is week 10 of my 18-week WBFF contest preparation. And I just want to cover what I have done this week with my training, how my nutrition has gone, what my macros are, and how reasons for why I'm modifying things this week. And as well as a couple of other interesting points. It's been an interesting journey for me thus far, so if you haven't followed along on my previous vlogs, do jump over and have a look. There's usually a really interesting topic covered each week. Just for example, training with an illness, stress response to eating, macro tracking while on holiday, how to track macros, how to incorporate alcohol, flexible dieting, all those kind of things. So do go and jump on and have a look at my previous video log. Hopefully they are useful for you, especially how to actually set up for a contest prep. So this week I'll just fill you in on what my macronutrients were. So today is actually Wednesday. I usually check in on Mondays, but I have been held up this week, so a little bit late coming to you guys. But last week, Monday, my macros were 160 protein, 50 grams of fat, and let me just think, 140 carbohydrate. And I had a really consistent week with hitting all my numbers, with the exception of one day. I actually went downtown and had a meal out and some drinks, and I did actually go over my carbohydrates, not after dinner. I actually stuck to my macros really well. It was actually when I got home, which is an effect of alcohol, I can assure you that. I was just really hungry before I went to bed, so I ate something extra and it set me over my carbs by about 50 and my fats by about 10. As a result, I did an extra training session this week just to compensate for that. I didn't want to have to sacrifice my macros the next couple of days just to come out square, so I threw in a full body workout to compensate. And as a result, my weight went from 68.2 on Monday last week, and I weighed in at 67.4 this Monday just gone, which is awesome. So I had a really good productive week, and to me it was actually a really noticeable change in my physique. Definitely more obvious collarbone. When I first started, I was looking back at like my week 1 check-in photos, and they were horrendous. I looked like a flobby whale, but hey, that's why we do these contest preps. It's all about getting into optimal physique, which yeah, I'm very happy with this week's progress. This week, I wanted to make sure that I continue that progression. I am behind in my rate of loss, so I wanted to try and catch up, and that meant that I'm bringing forwards or bringing down my macros a little bit earlier than I wanted to. I have a set trajectory of what I wanted to start at with my macronutrient targets and what I wanted to finish on as absolute minimums. I think I'm unfortunately going to have to drop a little bit lower because I had a couple of weeks holding me back with travel and things like that. So this week I set my new carbohydrate target at 130. Oh, I hate that number. It sounds really difficult. So yeah, 130 is my carb target, 160 is still my protein, so that's not changing. And my fat target is at 47 grams this week. So it's actually now Wednesday, so I can give you some insight into how that's going. Monday I had a day off. A few stressful things take place, so I took Monday as my rest day. I usually have one day of rest or full rest anyway, so I took that on Monday. And yesterday, being Tuesday, I did a double session. I did a spin class and also a weight training. And then today I did a leg session, and I jumped on the scales this morning, and I'm already down to 66.7 kilos. So that's just in 3 days, or 2 days really, on these new macros. So yeah, big changes are happening. I think if I continue up at that rate, I'm not going to have to change my macros again next week, because it would be unnecessary. I'm already losing weight on these numbers, so there's no point me restricting any further than I need to. So to the topic that I wanted to discuss this week, a lot of clients will frequently ask me, do I track my macros? So my set protein, my set targets for fats and carbohydrates, or do I track my calories? Because when they're using a tracking program, so MyFitnessPal or something similar, I recommend the Easy Diet Diary if you're Australian. It just seems to have more accurate and reliable data, and it's a really clear program to follow. So yeah, people will say, well, how come I hit my set targets every week? Why is it that my calories aren't matching up? And this is due to rounding errors. So regardless of where you're from, there are different countries will have different regulatory bodies who set the rules and regulations for how foods are labeled. So in the USA, it's the FDA that mandate all of the labels, and they will set guidelines for food manufacturers. So it's not just foods, it's beverages and supplements as well. They will set guidelines for what are the amounts, and depending on the product and what category it falls within, there are set amounts. So you'll see, for example, if you look on milk, all milks are always listed per serving as 250 ml. What actually happens is if a product has less than 50 calories, the food manufacturing companies have to round within 5 calories. So let's say you consume a small slice of cheese, I don't know, or something like that that is very low in calories. They can actually round up or down. So whilst the, let's say the protein value for something might say 1 or 2 grams, it might be 1 gram of fat and 0 grams of carbohydrate. That total caloric value can actually be rounded down. Now, if a product is over 50 calories, so as an example, you might look at a protein bar, for instance, and it might be a 170 calorie protein bar. They could have rounded that down by 10 calories because they're allowed to. So you could add up the total protein intake, you could add up the total carbohydrate and fat intake, and it might give you a different answer to what the calories say. So you can imagine if you were consuming various food products across the course of a day, overall, you're going to have some really different caloric values than if you were just to track your macronutrient targets on their own. So if you track your macronutrients, by default, you're going to know what your total caloric intake is, because carbohydrates are 16 kilojoules or 4 calories, fats are 9 calories or 37 kilojoules, and proteins are 4 calories or 16 kilojoules. So by default, you're going to know what your total caloric or kilojoule intake is. So if you are someone that's new to flexible dieting and you have your set macronutrient targets, follow the macronutrients. And that other thing is as well, I was looking at a package the other day, the Enlightened ice cream brand, and it said that for a single serving, which was 70 grams of ice cream or 70 mils of ice cream, that it was like 70 calories or something like that. And I was looking at the carbohydrate intake, and straight away, just the carbohydrate value that was listed alone, which might have been 14 grams, for instance, if I times that by its caloric value, I was already getting higher numbers than what were listed, so it didn't quite make sense. And I actually went and read the regulatory, or the regulations for the USA, and in the USA, you can actually subtract fiber and you can subtract sugar alcohols, so like erythritol and things like that, from the carbohydrate value, and that's what you're allowed to display when it comes to calories. So that's really deceiving because they're not calorie free. Fiber isn't calorie free. Sugar alcohols aren't calorie free. They still have a provision of energy. It's just a lot lower than, say, fats or carbohydrates. And the more products we typically consume that contain these products, we actually get better at extracting calories from those foods. So yeah, the reason I was tying this back to the fact that last week I actually was looking at the nutrition information label on Monster products. So Lane and I always have Monster, and I had glanced at the labels a couple of times, and one of them, I think the white Monster might have said like 1 gram of carbohydrates, so I just assumed that they're all around 1 gram. And I had a look, and the one that I'd been choosing, which was a non-carbonated beverage, because I find the carbonated ones give me a stomach upset. So if I'm trying to train, I obviously want that product for its caffeine. I was trying to choose one that was non-carbonated so that my stomach wasn't feeling kind of bleh before I go and train. It actually had 3 grams of carbohydrate. That's not a big deal if you just had 1 a day. I was having like 3 a day. That was my drink of choice. And then I hadn't read the label correctly. Now it actually has around 2 servings listed on the label. So it wasn't just 3 grams of carbohydrates I was consuming, it was 6. And I was having 3 a day. So I have unknowingly been consuming around 20 grams of carbohydrates without even knowing, because I wasn't tracking these at all. So for the last couple of months, yeah, my macros have not been accurate. And depending on it kind of explains why I've been having shifts up and down, depending on the products that I've been having, because there was a period where I was having a lot of these Monster drinks, and I was having enlightened ice cream, and I wasn't logging the values correctly. So yeah, I just wanted to draw your attention to how the labeling is actually mandated in USA and Australia. It's very similar. And just to make sure that you do check the labels and follow the macronutrient targets, not calories. Because if you're tracking your macros, you're going to be tracking your calories inherently anyway. I hope that has helped if you weren't familiar with how labels are actually set up, and if you're tracking and you're finding things aren't adding up, that is actually why. Thank you very much for tuning in. Yes, this was week 10. I'm down to 6 weeks until my contest on the 11th of November. I'm getting a little nervous because I'm not as lean at the body fat percentage or body composition that I was last time coming into a show. But that can't be helped. I'm not about to quit because of that, so it just means a few extra difficult weeks for me to come into the show. But if you do have any nutrition questions, or you're looking for a nutrition coach, you're more than welcome to jump onto my website. It's www.hbnutrition.com.au. I also have an online meal plan generator on here. So regardless of your gender, male or female, or your goals, whether you're looking to gain muscle or lose body fat, or maybe even do a reverse diet, I actually have semi-custom meal plans that can cater to your needs for all training goals. So do check that out. It's listed under the meal plan generator on my website. I also have plenty of complimentary recipes. I have nutrition articles on there, and lots of other useful information. And I'm also releasing my ebook tomorrow, 12 noon Australian Eastern Standard Time. So do check that out. Lots of macro friendly, fast, quick and easy recipes that you can try at home. Thanks for watching.